Since I say that this is the case, the person who is practicing to become a philosopher must seek to overcome himself so that he won't welcome pleasure and avoid pain, so that he won't love living and fear death, and so that, in the case of money, he won't honor receiving over giving. Only by exhibiting actions in harmony with the sound words which he has received will anyone be helped by philosophy. Won't we therefore be willing to endure pain in order to gain complete happiness? For what does the man who accepts insult do that is wrong? It is the doer of wrong who puts themselves to shame. The sensible man wouldn't go to the law, since he wouldn't even consider that he had been insulted. Besides, to be annoyed or angered about such things would be petty. Instead, easily and silently bear what has happened, since this is appropriate for those whose purpose is to be noble-minded. Thus it appears that exile helps, rather than hinders body and spirit by treating them better than they treat themselves. We should not use philosophy like a herbal remedy to be discarded when we're through. Rather, we must allow philosophy to remain with us, continually guarding our judgments throughout life, forming part of our daily regime, like eating a nutritious diet or taking physical exercise. Therefore, practicing each virtue always must follow learning the lessons appropriate to it, or it is pointless for us to learn about it. The person who claims to be studying philosophy must practice it even more diligently than the person who aspires to the art of medicine or some similar skill, inasmuch as philosophy is more important and harder to grasp than any other pursuit. And this, according to Musonius, should be one of the primary objectives of philosophy, to reveal to us our shortcomings so we can overcome them and thereby live a good life. Husband and wife should come together to craft a shared life, procreating children, seeing all things as shared between them, with nothing withheld or private to one another, not even their bodies. The birth of a human being which results from this union is, to be sure, something wonderful, but it isn't yet enough to account for the relationship of husband and wife, since even outside marriage it could result from any other sexual union, just as in the case of animals. So, in marriage there must be, above all, perfect companionship and mutual love. Both in sickness, health, and under all conditions, it should be with desire for this, and children, that both entered upon marriage. If one accomplishes some good though with toil, the toil passes, but the good remains. If one does something dishonorable with pleasure, the pleasure passes, but the dishonor remains. If you accomplish something good with hard work, the labor passes quickly, but the good endures. If you do something shameful in pursuit of pleasure, the pleasure passes quickly, but the shame endures. You will earn the respect of all if you begin by earning the respect of yourself. Don't expect to encourage good deeds in people conscious of your own misdeeds. Wealth is able to buy the pleasures of eating, drinking, and other sensual pursuits, yet can never afford a cheerful spirit or freedom from sorrow. If we were to measure what is good by how much pleasure it brings, nothing would be better than self-control. If we were to measure what is to be avoided by its pain, nothing would be more painful than lack of self-control. Since every man dies, it is better to die with distinction than to live long. We begin to lose our hesitation to do immoral things when we lose our hesitation to speak of them. Humanity must seek what is not simple and obvious using the simple and obvious. To accept injury without a spirit of savage resentment, to show ourselves merciful toward those who wrong us, being a source of good hope to them, is characteristic of a benevolent and civilized way of life. In marriage, there must be complete companionship and concern for each other on the part of both husband and wife, in health and in sickness and at all times, because they entered upon the marriage for this reason as well as to produce offspring. When such caring for one another is perfect, and the married couple provide it for one another, and each strives to outdo the other, then this is marriage as it ought to be, and deserving of emulation, since it is a noble union. But when one partner looks to his own interests alone and neglects the others, or, by Zeus, the other is so minded that he lives in the same house, but keeps his mind on what is outside it and does not wish to pull together with his partner or to cooperate, then inevitably the union is destroyed, and although they live together, their common interests fare badly, and either they finally get divorced from one another, or they continue on in an existence that is worse than loneliness. Others have been in poor health from overindulgence and high living before exile has provided strength, forcing them to live a more vigorous life. The best livelihood, particularly for the strong, is earning a living from the soil, whether you own your land or not. Many can support their families by farming land owned by the state or private landowners. Some even get rich through hard work with their own hands. The earth repays those who cultivate her, both justly and well, multiplying what she received, endowing in abundance all the necessities of life to anyone willing to work in all this without violating your dignity or self-respect. We will train both soul and body when we accustom ourselves to cold, heat, thirst, hunger, scarcity of food, hardness of bed, abstaining from pleasures and enduring pains. What good are gilded rooms or precious stones fitted on the floor, inlaid in the walls, carried from great distances at the greatest expense? These things are pointless and unnecessary. Without them, isn't it possible to live healthy? Aren't they the source of constant trouble? Don't they cost vast sums of money that, through public and private charity, may have benefited many? Generally speaking, if you devote yourself to the life of philosophy whilst tilling the land at the same time, I couldn't compare it to any other way of life, nor would I prefer any other livelihood. It is living more in accord with nature, drawing your sustenance directly from the earth, the nurse and mother of us all, rather than from another source. For mankind, evil is injustice and cruelty and indifference to a neighbor's trouble, while virtue is brotherly love and goodness and justice and beneficence and concern for the welfare of your neighbor, with